action taken to prevent pregnancy, can we put the same language in there where it says prior to implementation of the embryo?
That's fine.
Okay,
It's consistent with.
I think it is consistent, so we're fine. Yes, sir. The answer is yes, and we will add that into, it's all right if we just add that on,
Yes.
Representative Daniels. Okay, just do us a separate amendment. Okay, just give us a second. We'll be right with you.
All right.
So, Mr. Starnes, will you withdraw that, will you withdraw your amendment so that we can get one in that is consistent with what we're trying to do here?
Yes, sir. I make a motion to withdraw my amendment.
You don't have to withdraw it. You just keep it.
Oh, you're
and
just doing a
let's add to
separate
it.
one? Okay, never mind. Go ahead. We're good. I thought you were gonna redo the whole thing. We're going to. Prince. We're about to, all right, as to the First Amendment, which we've gone over, which has been offered and seconded, is there any further discussion? And all in favor of adopting that amendment, please say aye. Aye. It's adopted. Okay. Now, Mr. Simpson, you've got one. Go ahead.
Yes. On page 2, line 39, after the word pregnancy, insert prior to the implementation of an embryo in the uterus which is legally marketed. And that's the same language from the amendment we just adopted.
Do I hear a second? Okay. All right, the Second Amendment has been offered and seconded. Is there any discussion on this Second Amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, Leader Daniels, we are now back to your bill as amended twice. Is there anything you wish to add?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time. I think that, I've kind of outlined what the purpose of this particular piece of legislation is. It's only a few pages long, and if anybody have any other questions, I'm happy to answer those questions. Without that, I have.
We're good. Mr. Robbins, do you have a question?
I do, Leader Daniels. My question is, in reading Section 2, it says an individual who resides in the state of Alabama shall have the right to obtain contraceptives. And then in Section B, it says the rights in subsection A may not be infringed. I'm just wondering if you are let's say you're a Catholic doctor that doesn't believe in contraception, do they have to provide contraceptive if the patient says, I would like contraception? Do they have the right to say, I don't really, it's against my morals?
It does not infringe upon medical practices. And also, it does not stand between the citizen, their doctor. It's only between basically the government and the doctor's office. So, no.
So a doctor could say, I still goes against my morals, I don't, or my religious view, and I choose, you can go see another doctor.
I don't think there's any penalty.
They're not forced to have to do
yeah,
it, right?
I don't think there's a penalty for not doing it, but I'm certain that an individual will choose not to. Go to that.
That's what I just wanted to make sure that the doctor wouldn't be forced to have to do it if they didn't want to.
Mr. Tillman?
Yes, Judge, I would motion for a favorable report as amended twice.
Okay. Okay, there's a motion and a second to give this bill a favorable report as amended twice. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you,
Representative
Mr.
Daniels,
Chairman.
thank you
Thank
so
you to the
much.
members of the committee.
As amended twice. Okay, we're going to go into the public hearing. The Representative Garrett, would you want to explain your bill? And then we will certainly, if you have anyone to speak for it, we'll let them, and I know we've got a few people who want to speak against it, but go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. I'm back. I had this bill at least, I think, two other times. What this bill basically does was say that if a railroad knows that they are going to have a train down for more than 2 hours, and it's for other than mechanical reasons, they have to break the train at crossings, or there will be a penalty of up to $75,000 a day. Now, let me just say a little bit about my background. I'm from the business world. Most of my time was in manufacturing. I actually worked for a company that provided services to Class 1 railroads. I'm very familiar with the railroad industry, how they operate, what they do, all the parameters, their federal standing. I understand all of that. In the past, we had issues primarily after and during the COVID situation when the supply chain issues were there, and then there was a workforce issue, as you know. But everything kind of turned on pretty quick. And when that happened, there was this confluence of all these negative things that happened. You couldn't get workers to work. You would load trains and just send them on to get them out to the next destination. Then people wouldn't be there to unload. And in between all that confusion, if things were backed up and there were timing issues, sometimes the crews timed out. So it took maybe days to get crews. And in my particular situation, what really exacerbated it for me was in the city of Trussville, we had a train that sat there for 10 days and blocked the main intersection in Trussville. So I saw that really as an issue of safety and concern, besides just being a nuisance type thing. But when I introduced that bill, turns out it was an issue all over the state. And to the railroad's credit, I think they really responded. They worked through their issues. They got back the supply chain problems. They were able to hire workers, and that's been a challenge. I realize in all the industries right now they are facing that. But I will just say that I've noticed just lately kind of a little more occurrence of these happenings around where I drive. I'm not on the lookout, but just I'll see them. Trains will be for long periods of time, hours at a time. There's one neighborhood in my district where I've seen cars parked and the people are literally just walking through the trains, and it's just not a good way to go. I don't know why that's happening. I will say this, that as a general statement, that I think since COVID, some of our customer service and just general way we operate businesses, to me, has become not near as professional or as lax as as tight as it used to be. I think not just railroads, I'm just around in general. So my thought was that to the extent that we can avoid these type things with proper planning and logistical planning, we should do that. And the reason I bring the bill back, quite frankly, was a few weeks ago, I had a friend who almost died because the emergency personnel could not get to them because of the train was blocking the track in Trussville. And the wife was on the phone with the gentleman. He said, I'm having some difficulty. He dropped the phone. She called the neighbor. The neighbor was able to go over there and resuscitate him, but she had to get hold of 911 to give him directions. It took about 20 minutes for them to get to him beyond where they could have otherwise done that. I'm just wanting to bring this back to our attention, that I think that as long as the railroads are doing the proper planning, we can avoid a lot of these issues. And this is just simply a bill that says if you're going to be down for 2 hours and you know it, you don't block the intersection. You can break the train. It may cost a little bit of money, but it's something I think that's been brought home to me because of my situation with my friend.
Chairman Garrett, I appreciate this bill and bringing it. I'm definitely sympathetic. I have a railroad crossing in my district that provides problems at times. It's not nearly as populated as the area you have, but they have their own dedicated camera and website so the citizens can check the camera before they try to get home or leave. But I just want to echo something I had said previously, I guess, when this bill got brought up, is we as a state has certainly embraced the idea of what the railroad industry can do to help us from an economic development standpoint. I believe it was about this time last year, or maybe the year before, that the governor had just announced touted an expansion of our portways, our port to inland transportation, and the railroad was a huge piece of that. So, I think they're very instrumental in what we need as far as our economic development, getting goods and services across the state. So I am thinking this is worthy of the dialogue, but I'm also concerned just about the idea that we're needing and calling on increased use of the railroad to get goods and services, but at the same time, we're taking up an issue that would potentially fine them. So just finding that balance, because I don't want to discourage that. I think if that's good for economic development, we need to do that. So if we as the state need to get involved in increasing that infrastructure, maybe additional double track services so these trains don't have to wait on the train meets that so often slow them up or create that situation where they're parked on a crossing while there's a train meet going on. We need to begin to look at that. So I appreciate that from the spirit, we need to increase the conversation related to these issues.
I want to say, to make it clear, from the last time I filed the bill, the railroads were very responsive. In my city, they're having regular communication, and when they've adjusted some of the procedures, they communicate, and then they're doing some other things to help us figure out long-term solutions. But I'm just saying I've noticed kind of a trend of maybe more frequencies, and to the extent that that can be controlled through better planning, then I think I want to reinforce that message. But thank you. I agree with you.
That's really good. Thank you. We have 3 people who wish to speak in opposition. Macy Walker, Casey Pipes, Elizabeth Lawler. I'd ask that each of you speak about 3 minutes and tell us what you want to tell us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Macy Walker. I serve as the executive director of the Alabama Railway Association. So the association consists of the Class 1 railroads, the large ones that you're probably most familiar with, Norfolk Southern, CSX, BNSF, and then also the short line railroads, which are the smaller, more local trains, and we also have vendors and suppliers to the industry as well. As members of the association, like Mr. Bedsole said, we do play a critical role in the movement of goods throughout our state and in economic development and all the progress that we've made in Alabama. We do respectfully oppose this bill by Chairman Garrett. You're going to hear from Casey Pipes. He's an attorney and knows a lot more about the actual legal implications of this bill. And then also Elizabeth Lawler with Norfolk Southern, like Chairman Garrett said, they're the ones who actually serve Trustful. And she can speak to the specifics more of his issues in the Trustful Birmingham area. So like he said, he introduced a bill similar to this about 2 years ago. I think it was 2021 in the aftermath of COVID. The rail industry suffered a lot of the same issues that all industries did, especially with staffing. But the rail industry staffing is a little bit different than a lot of other industries in that there's a lot of training. It took a little bit longer to get people online and up and running. We've made great progress in staff recruitment and retention since this bill was last introduced. We try to place an emphasis on being responsive to community issues and are available to any members of this committee or the legislature as a whole. We want you, if you have whether it's a blocked crossing issue or an economic development project in your district, if you want to meet with someone from the railroad, please let me know. I'm happy to facilitate those conversations. Additionally, the FRA, the Federal Railroad Administration, has awarded grants to address the block crossing issues. And our member companies routinely work with local communities to help them through that application process. And one recent example in Alabama is in Pelham. They received one of the largest grants in the country, $42 million, for a grade separation project. And Norfolk Southern has worked with the city of Birmingham on a grant as well that will, when it's up and running, the project is up and running, assist with a long-term solution to the issues in Trustful, just because of how the rail line runs. So my point in sharing those examples is that we do understand that rail operations are complex and they can be challenging and frustrating, but we are constantly tweaking our operations. Like Chairman Garrett said, Norfolk Southern, I think, has really gone above and beyond, trying at least to tweak things to make it better. There are a lot of neighborhoods in Trustful and throughout the state that are on the other side of the railroad track because the development has been so great and so fast in areas like that. And that just presents challenges when you're talking about a huge population growth. But we think that bills like this one have proven to be ripe for legal challenges in other states where similar legislation has passed or been introduced. And we really believe that there are other ways to resolve these types of matters outside of the legislative process.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Walker. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Casey Pipes.
Thank you, Chairman Hill. My name's Casey Pipes. I'm a lawyer down in Mobile at the Helmsing Leach Law Firm, and I represent CSX on a variety of different matters in the state. And like all of you, I've been stopped at a railroad crossing before. I mean, it's not a fun experience when you're trying to get somewhere. I'm sure it's even worse when there's a first responder emergency situation. That said, House Bill 348 is not the solution to that issue, and it's really not even a part of the solution to it. If you imagine creating a new legal action like the bill proposes, where there's a train that's blocking it, and there's an emergency vehicle that's trying to cross, and then somebody goes and files a lawsuit, gets served on the railroad, gets a hearing in front of the judge, and then the judge orders that the train be broken, then you still have to scramble a locomotive to go do it, to physically move the train. I mean, the emergency vehicle's found a way around, or the train's moved on its own for other reasons. So I don't think the bill is actually going to speed up the movement of a train from a blocked crossing. The railroads are subject to a whole host of regulations, federal, some union-related for their employees, and other operating rules that govern things like train movement, mandatory brake inspections, mandatory work hour restrictions, and other matters. There are a lot of different reasons why a train may find itself parked instead of moving, but I'm sure, as y'all all appreciate, the train companies are in the business of moving this freight instead of parking it. I mean, nobody wants it to sit idle, certainly not blocking a road. But these federal laws are particularly problematic. The Surface Transportation Board has exclusive jurisdiction over anything related to the operation of the train company, the movement of that, the scheduling and the movement of those trains. The Federal Railroad Administration, under the DOT director, federal DOT director, has all exclusive jurisdiction over safety-related matters involving the trains. And these are all the issues that would be impacted by somebody saying, hey, Norfolk Southern, or hey, CSX, we want you to move this train right here off this intersection right now. Maybe it's a brake inspection issue, maybe it's a work crew issue, maybe it's some other issues why the train has been stopped, but it's not that easy just to move it. But, and this is why, as Macy indicated, there have been other states that have tried a legislative fix. We prepared a handout that kind of lists 15, 18 maybe reported opinions from around the country where either a statewide law or a municipal ordinance was set aside, whether it was for, and they're all blocked crossing legislation related issues. And they're set aside mainly on federal preemption grounds, and that's because these laws do seek to have a uniform policy, a uniform set of rules for trains wherever, if they're in Alabama, if they're in Georgia. Some of the Class 1 railroads are obviously in multiple states, but there needs to be a uniform set of rules, and that's why the federal government has defended this turf in that way.
Okay, Mr. Pipes, we appreciate it. Thank you so very much. We appreciate your input.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Lawler?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. And I want to thank Representative Garrett for he did recognizing a lot of the efforts that Norfolk Southern has been making in his community. Many of you on this panel, I have worked with you directly, and if not with you, with your mayors or county commissioner on local issues that we try to solve. Norfolk Southern has invested over $143 million in its infrastructure in Alabama last year alone. That's the fourth highest amount of investment in our whole territory, including Virginia, Ohio, and Georgia, that has twice as much railroad track in it as Alabama does. That's also double that what we invested in 2021. And as we make those investments, I point that out, a lot of it's economic development related, and we are now looking at it a new lens that if we can solve a local issue in terms of a blocked crossing while we're adding that infrastructure, we are strongly trying to take that approach and solve those local issues. We want trains to move. Casey said that before. Macy mentioned also, we only make money when that freight moves. But we are a single track railroad, as is a lot of the Class 1 railroads and short lines in Alabama, that depends on sidings for trains that are moving in opposite directions to meet and pass each other safely. And we use those regularly for northbound and southbound meets and east and west meets. Mr. Garrett mentioned this in his remarks, that we have a siding in Trussville called the Cahaba siding that is 5 miles outside of our major rail yard in Norris Yard that we use probably 20 to 25 times a day, depending on the amount of rail traffic. We have worked closely with Mayor Choate there in Trussville to adjust our operations so that we hold those trains out of that siding until the last minute, so to minimize that impact. And it's worked really well, and we appreciate that partnership. We've tried to be equally responsive to other people on this committee and their communities relative to a siding being located with an industry being served or a neighborhood that only has one way in, one way out. If we can make an adjustment in our operation, I can speak for Norfolk Southern, I can speak for CSX, BNSF, we will try to make that adjustment. But an operational change is not permanent, it's temporary. As freight increases, more customers come online, expand, we're gonna have to change our operations to absorb that new freight. Permanent solution is infrastructure. Mr. Garrett mentioned that we're involved with and Macy with a federal grant in Birmingham and Trussville to build 2 permanent overpasses, one on the north side and one on the south side of our rail yard that will create 10 miles of double main line track into our yard and really reduce that impact. We have a second grant coming for West Birmingham from west of the downtown area out to Bessemer to do traffic studies to help those 4 municipalities to do something similar. We've partnered with multiple cities on that. So I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you. I ensure if you reiterate what Macy said, if you have an issue in your district and we've not visited on it, I invite you to please call me, let me know. I'd like to be helpful. Mr. Bedsole and I have worked closely together on a number of things. I just recently had something in Mr. Wadsworth district, and I learned something new every time and try to make that change. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Does any of the committee members have any questions for any of the 3 presenters? Okay, seeing none, we will take this up next week for a vote. Thank y'all very, very much. Senator Stewart, can we do SB 119?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee. It's an honor to be back before this august body to speak about SB 119. It was up last week, and so this is a very simple bill. Under existing law, an employer who violates child labor laws are subject to civil and criminal penalties. This bill is just an amendment to the Alabama Code that will increase both civil and criminal penalties for an employer who violates our child labor laws. Currently, some of our current state fines for child labor violations are just $300, and these are less than many people pay for basic driving violations. And I just want to thank Representative Allman for carrying the bill last week. This bill is really to address crimes against children. That is what this is about. We've had just in this last month in Coleman County, we had a 15-year-old fall off a roof and die because he cracked his skull. And so we need to be protecting children in this state. This is a nationwide trend. We have a janitorial company in Tennessee that had children clean dangerous equipment in slaughterhouses. And so we need to.
I don't want to interrupt you too much, but I think you've convinced us. Mr.
Great.
Chairman, you got a motion? I hate for you, the problem, I don't know if you're a lawyer.
I had a
Lawyers
script.
sometimes ask 3 questions more than they should and go from winning to losing, and I don't want you to go from winning to losing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You called it an August body, and you had him right then.
Yeah, it's obviously March. Isn't it?
So
All right, go ahead, Chris.
Make a motion for a favorable report.
All right, is there a second? Motion and a second for a favorable report. Any further discussion? Senator, you got it. All in
Thank you,
favor,
Mr.
say aye.
Chairman. Thank you,
Any
committee.
opposed? Senator, thank you so much. We appreciate you. We appreciate you working with us. Smitherman's not here, so we'll move on. Representative Hollis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. HB 411. Existing law does not allow a pregnant woman sentenced to incarceration to defer her sentence until after the birth of her child. This bill will adopt the Alabama Women's Child Care Alternatives, Resource, and Education Care Act. This bill will also provide that each woman, upon admissions to a jail, shall inform the individual conducting her initial intake medical screening if she is pregnant or suspect that she may be pregnant. This bill will require each woman who informs the individual conducting her initial intake medical screening that she is or may be pregnant to assess for pregnancy with a urine pregnancy test within 3 days of her initial intake medical screening unless she declines the testing. This bill will require a woman who's tested positive for pregnancy be released on bail, provided that the court determines that the woman does not pose a significant threat. The bill will provide that if a woman is pregnant at the time she is sentenced to incarceration, the court shall include a term of pre-incarceration probation to be served until 12 weeks after the woman gives birth, provided that the court determines that the woman does not pose a significant threat. The bill would allow any pre-incarceration term of probation to be credited to the woman's sentence and would provide that the pre-incarceration term of probation shall be served with certain electronic supervision and without payment of any fines. The bill will require a woman serving a pre-incarceration term of probation to report a loss of a pregnancy for her to her probation officer, and would give the court discretion as to when she would self-surrender following the pregnancy loss. The bill would also require a woman serving a pre-incarceration term of probation to self-surrender 12 weeks after the birth of her child and provide the failure to surrender is a Class A misdemeanor. And Mr. Chair, and to members, children being born in prison is a clear illustration of the two-prison pipeline of our society. U.S. Senate report states that children of prisoners are 6 times more likely than other children to be incarcerated at some point in their lives. 70% of children of prisoners will become involved with national prison system. We can address all the negative consequences involved with someone, parents being incarcerated, educational outcomes, or generational poverty. But however, this bill would help both the parents and the children, help children by eliminating the stigma of being born in prison, allowing for a short period of postpartum care, allowing for a child's rearing to begin at home and not in prison, safer to give birth at home, and safer for a pregnant woman and to the baby for late-term care to occur outside prison. This also will help the mothers can rest and assure that their baby is delivered and cared for in a caring environment. And it also would motivate a person to have good behavior too.
Representative Hollis, thank you. All right, any questions for Representative Hollis? Any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Wadsworth.
Basically, if a lady went and got pregnant, then she can avoid jail time.
I didn't hear you.
If a lady gets pregnant, then she can avoid jail time under the bill.
If a lady she's not avoiding jail time. She have to go to her probation officer. She has to report to her probation officer, and she can have an anklet on, but she's being kept up with all times? If that's the question that you're asking.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Holmes.
Ms. Hollis, so just to what you just said, are you saying she would be monitored at home under supervised with an ankle bracelet or
Yes,
whatever?
because she will also get time served as well by doing this.
Okay. Did you consider at all restricting this to crimes or people charged with crimes where there's no physical violence involved?
Well, that's in the bill that states that they propose no threat. So that's up to the judge discretionary.
So it's discretionary with the judge whether to allow this or not. So if the judge decides she poses a threat to society or danger to
Absolutely.
society.
It's not for a serial killer or anybody like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Betzold, did you have a question?
Hey, Ms. Hollis. You and I did speak a little bit ahead of time, and I specifically said I was going to try to get some feedback, and that's on me for not ahead of time. But I just have a couple questions, if you don't mind. On page 3 of the bill, it mentions that if there's a test positive for pregnancy, the results shall be reported to the court and the county health department. If you could give me a little background on the intent of reporting that to the county health department, for what the purposes of that would be.
Well, it's basically so they can keep count and know what's going on.
Okay, so is the health department then going to be required to do reporting on how often this is occurring? I'm just trying to see the mechanism because I don't want
I'm sure if it's asked for.
If our county health departments are asked to receive it, I don't want them to feel like they're in a position, well, what are we doing with that information? So was there a specific intended purpose for that?
No.
Okay. And then on the next line where it speaks of releasing on bail.
Where are you?
Next line down, or 2 lines down, line 80 on page 3.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any requirement, or was that meant to intend that this would be to release on their own recognizance, or just simply that there is a bail instated? Because in certain cases there may not be.
Provided that the court determines that the pregnant woman does not pose a significant threat or danger to any person, to the community, or any property in the community.
All right, so there's no limitation on where that bail is set by the court. It could be set anywhere as long as
discretion
there's
of the judge.
Opportunity for bail to be there. Okay, and then the last thing that I just wanted to make sure that I understood, it's kind of with what Representative Wadsworth was speaking about, was that on page 4, line 111, anytime a pregnant woman spends a pre-incarceration term of probation pursuant to this act shall be credited to the woman's sentence or disposition.
To time served.
And so I believe that I interpret that to be that if any time she served at home while she was pregnant, that time would be reduced from any jail time.
Yes.
And so that would be a little bit of avoiding jail time in that case.
Well, I wouldn't say it's avoiding jail time because you're on probation. You got to report to your probation officer, and they're keeping up with everything that you're doing.
Well, so
she's not going to go too far.
Sentencing or incarceration and different from jail time, actually time served in jail. So I believe that it kind of circumvents the process if the judge sentenced somebody to jail or in custody in a jail or prison, then it does take that time away. So, at the end of the day, I completely understand in which the spirit in which that's intended, but it does take away from the actual time incarceration. It's more of a probation and monitoring, not incarceration.
Okay.
Mr. Avon?
At the appropriate time, I want to make a motion to give this bill a favorable report.
Is there a second? Thank you, ma'am. All right, there's a motion and a second for a favorable report. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Opposed.
Okay, the ayes have it. You got a favorable report. Representative Hollis, we'll see you on the House floor.
Thank you.
He ain't got on the tie. Representative England, you want to do House Bill 299?
I'm just going to do it from here. It's not, and
by all means.
And also, the subcommittee met this morning, and they have a number of amendments that they've suggested. I was unable to attend that meeting because I was in Education Trust Fund trying to raise taxes. So, so in an effort to get this amendment together in a more presentable format, to get everybody a better opportunity to get a hold of it, I'm going to ask that we carry it over for a week.
Okay, we'll do it. Mr. England, we'll go to 417. You will be on the agenda next time. Mr. Ingram, are you ready on 419?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. This bill we've had a problem throughout the state, especially in my district, that for house parties, people coming renting houses at Airbnb or renting a house online for whatever source they may have. And especially at the beach, we talked with the sheriffs yesterday when they were here, and the Sheriff's Association supports this legislation, and this just gives the sheriffs a little more, or the law enforcement a little more probable cause to be able to go in to inspect a house if there's underage drinking or drugs or, a lot of illegal activity. A lot of shootings, a lot of killings and throughout the state generated through parties like this. I'll be glad to try to answer any questions. What I know about law enforcement, you can put in a thimble and still have room enough for this building, but.
Mr. Ingram, don't we have an amendment?
We do, yes, sir.
Who's got it? Mr. Betzel, please.
Yes, sir. So the amendment has two different small sections. First will be on page 2, line 55, and you will replace with the following: club, motel, hotel, or any other unit designed for dwelling. Notwithstanding the foregoing, a residence shall not include a facility that is properly licensed or permitted by a governmental entity or that is occupied by an organization chartered by a college or university, nor shall a residence include any building owned or operated by a college or university. Specifically, that does apply to sororities and fraternities on our college campuses. And then the second piece of it will replace line 77 on page 3 with the following: violation of law. And then paren E, this section shall not apply to the host of an event at a facility that is properly licensed or permitted by a governmental entity to host a party, or to an adult serving as the facility manager or officer of an organization that is chartered by a college or university that hosts events. And this would be specifically if there's a dorm parent on site that would be overseeing the functions at a sorority or fraternity house.
Mr. Chairman, I consider this to be a friendly amendment.
Okay, that amendment has been offered. Is there a second? Thank you. Okay, are there any questions concerning the amendment itself?
I have a question.
Please.
Why are we saying that colleges can violate the law, but nobody else can violate it? I don't understand the standard.
I think the reasoning was behind this is most of the colleges or all the colleges have their own law enforcement, and the colleges wanted to be separated out of it since they have their own and they're on top of it already. And I consider that to be friendly, and I can see where they're coming from on that. Yes, sir.
Any other questions on the amendment? All in favor of amending the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, you're amended. Mr. Representative Ingram, we're back to you as amended. Is there anything else you wish to add?
No, sir. Mr. Chairman, I'd ask for approval of HB 419 as amended, please, sir.
Can I get a motion for that? Thank you. Is there a second? Motion is second to give HB 419 a favorable report as amended. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, you have it as amended.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee, and it's good to see Representative McClammy back. Good to see her smiling face. Thank you, guys.
Indeed. Mr. Robbins, you ready on 392?
I am. You want me to do it right here?
Sure. It doesn't matter. Either way you want to.
Basically, what this bill does is that when an individual, which is already should be the law, but when an individual passes away, a deceased individual, all that's required now to transfer the title of a vehicle is to go to the revenue office and bring or go to the tag office and show the death certificate, and the tag office will issue that person a tag. So I just want it to be clearly set out that you need to have filed a summary distribution, which is a small claims estate, probated the estate, or to accommodate revenue and keep costs down. You could do an affidavit, but the affidavit must be signed by all heirs of the deceased. And there's a penalty portion which would state on the affidavit that you'd be committing perjury if you are lying on the form.
Thank you. Are there any questions about this bill? Sir, yes, sir. Mr. Pettis?
I know in my area, there's a lot of men and wife have a car, and it's in their name because they borrowed the money on it. Okay, they have a will, and one of them dies, the other one gets the car. But if you do this, that means they got to go through a whole bunch of rigmarole to get it. Am I reading this right or not?
No, you could still just do the affidavit route. And you would sign an affidavit and swear under oath that you are the sole heir. The issue, it just happened that in the past year, I had 4 people come and see me that said, hey, dad died, brother already sold the car. What do I do? Or, basically that same scenario happened 4 times, and it's, the car wasn't worth much, so you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip, and you can't unwind that. And the form doesn't have any, all it is you are an heir, here's the tag. So this is just, the point is to make it clear that you need permission from all of the heirs. But in that case, if it's husband and wife, that individual would be the sole heir.
Well, I mean, they could still have children, all, but usually, I mean, if they're grown or whatever, but
They could, but now there would also be knowledge of it. You'd be committing perjury if you lied on the form. So, I mean, someone could still go and lie on the form and say, I'm the only heir. But now we're just letting them know that if you are lying, there could be a penalty associated.
So you can't do it without going through probate. No.
Right, yeah,
Okay,
there's still an
that's-
affidavit. There's still a way where you could just turn in an affidavit that these are the heirs and they transfer the title.
Okay.
And all heirs agree to the transfer of the title.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Brennan, do you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to basically comment. Representative Roberts, this is a good bill. I've had this happen several times. We have contested estate matters. Someone will jump the gun. They will take the title down. They will go and re-register it into some nefarious family member. Will go ahead and take it and take granddaddy's truck or take mama's car or whatever. And this is a great way to stop that and to get it where all the heirs have the opportunity to be aware of it and stop that from going on. I think it's a good bill.
Thank you.
Is there a motion for a favorable report? So moved. All right, we got a motion and a second. Favorable report. Any other comment? Questions? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Get up, Mr. Robbins. Thank you so much. All right. Mr. England, you gonna do SB 210 for Senator Smitherman?
I'll do the best I can.
I'm sure.
SB 210, thank you for recognition. SB 210 is a very simple bill, and all it would do is create concurrent jurisdiction for criminal offenses committed by juveniles on military installations.
Which truly is the same thing that Representative Hassel
Yeah, same bill.
last week, isn't it?
Same bill. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I've been asked by LSA to make an amendment, and the amendment throughout this bill simply changes the word juvenile to children. And they feel like that would be a better, okay. So.
That sounds like a friendly amendment to me.
I think it is, Mr. England. So the amendment is offered. Do you second it?
I do.
Mr. England, thank you. Is there any questions on the amendment? We're just changing that word juvenile to children to make it clear as to what we're dealing with here. All right, all in favor of the amendment, say aye. Any opposed? So, Mr. England, I guess you make a favorable motion for a favorable report as amended?
So moved.
All right. Any questions about it? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, Mr. England, thank you so much. We got it. Okay, Representative Allman, we are down to the Alabama Code of Military Justice.
Okay, thank you very much. This is a bill requested by the military, and I'm honored to carry it. It basically makes a lot of cleanup under Section 31 of our code. They describe it as it streamlines the law. It allows commanders to better understand the path of the military and civilian legal procedures. They have vetted this with the DAs and prosecutors around the state. This is a misdemeanor code bill only. Felonies have been taken out. It is cost effective. I think previously all court martials were adjudicated by a panel. Now the military side will be handled by a military judge alone. So those were some of and then in addition, it removes any reference to naval militia, the Navy, the Marine Corps, or the Coast Guard. And then just general update on language and grammatical fixes. Those are the highlights of the changes in the code.
And there's an amendment, Representative Allman.
There is an amendment. I do not have it in front of me. And I can offer it if you don't mind. Here we go. This is an amendment from LSA. It's a technical amendment. They just omitted accidentally some of these code sections. There's no substantive changes at all. It's a friendly amendment.
All right. So, Representative Allman's offering that amendment. Is there a second? Thank you. Any questions on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Representative Allman, we are back to you. 412 as amended. Is there anything else that you need to tell us about?
No, sir, unless there are any questions.
All right. So, Representative Allman, do you make a motion to give this bill a favorable report as amended?
I do, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Thank you.
Thanks. We got a second. Favorable report as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's favorable report as amended, and thank y'all. Appreciate it. We will see y'all next week, and we're just getting through these too quick, I'm afraid.
If you want me to start speaking up, I can.
I was kidding. We would have had a long conversation about that.